Don says, then by this contact also with intelligent energy, can you give me an example of what this would be for both, for the contact with intelligent infinity and intelligent energy? Could you give me an example of what type of experience this would result in, and if that's at all possible? Ra says, this shall be the last query of this working of full length. We have discussed the possibilities of contact with intelligent energy, for this energy is the energy of the Logos, and thus it is the energy which heals, builds, removes, destroys, and transforms all other selves as well as the self. Oof, beautiful. The contact with intelligent infinity is most likely to produce an unspeakable joy in the entity experiencing such contact. If you wish to query in more detail upon this subject, we invite you to do so in another working. Is there a brief query before we close this working? And so, such a shame that they didn't talk more about this here, but okay. So what is this contact with intelligent infinity and intelligent energy? I already got ahead of myself when I spoke about intelligent energy, the contact with intelligent energy, which is that energy of the Logos. They say even more: heal, build, removes, destroys, and transforms. But you see, you're transforming all other selves as well as the self. This is in service of both positive and negative, because what you do with this knowledge, with this knowing of intelligent energy or intelligent infinity, is how you use it for your relationship with others. And so you will see that I think this also explains why there is a sort of spiritual pain, suffering on people on the spiritual path, is because they haven't been able to put into practice all of this that they have been learning. And I deal with people like this all the time, because that's just the people that I help the most with, because that's who I was. I went through the process of intellectualizing a lot of stuff before knowing how to put it into practice. And I know that pain. And the release of this pain is just simply abiding in that which you already are. It's not something you're going to achieve. This is where all the paradoxes are resolved, because you don't have to pursue anything that you aren't already. In fact, that pursuit is what's causing the constant dissatisfaction with what you are. But in the sense of how I see this playing a part in the pain, spiritual pain of some seekers, is that as we become aware of all of this and we can put it into practice, you feel sort of empty. You feel, of course, the intellect being massaged constantly will feel as it needs a way to put it into practical use. And it's almost like a yearning. It's a yearning to do it, but it needs to collapse this. It needs to go through that process of, like I said, the spontaneous you is right there. So you don't have to practice anything. You don't have to become spontaneous. You are spontaneous. I mean, spontaneity is something that doesn't require any interference or interaction of one part of you with the other. It just simply is, and trusting in that spontaneity of self. That's where everything lies. Stop controlling. Lend the control or surrender the control, right? So that is the contact with intelligent energy. And what you do is that whatever it is that you're going to do is tied into that spontaneity. They also say the contact with intelligent infinity is most likely to produce an unspeakable joy in the entity experiencing such contact. This unspeakable joy, in my experience, is that relaxation, right? It's unspeakable. It really is. And you would see often that anybody who talks about this joy, which is not really joy, I call it peace, harmony, happiness, unconditional love. All these terms are associated with something else, and thus they cannot really explain what this joy is, what this state of being is. And so we simply direct others to go into to inquire in the nature of their being, you see, because it's there and we cannot talk about it. This makes a direct relationship with the Tao, which can be spoken. It's not the eternal Tao. See, because once you talk about it, you are ascribing a sort of limitation to it or form to it. And that's not what we're talking about here, or what we are referring to. We can talk about it. So that contact with intelligent infinity in the process of simply abiding in yourself is that joy. Yeah, it will produce that sensation, which is equanimity, harmony. I run out of words to describe this because as I have been saying, it's not possible. But it can only be experienced. Let me put it that way. This cannot be spoken of. It can only be experienced. And it can be experienced by the disciplined mind that in any case, it doesn't matter what path you take. And I'm talking about now not positive or negative paths, but just simply which method do you use. All methods are bringing you to a total relaxation of the mental activity. And that's why we call it still your mind, and you'll be able to listen to the Creator. Silence is the greatest teacher, and so on. All these things are pointing to the state of being. You can do it now. Just listen to my words as the last and only thing that is within you. And as you do this, every time I get quiet, there is silence. And in that silence, you feel it. Thoughts may arise. Feelings in the body may distract you. Just like my words are distracting your perceptions. And yet that silence is still there in the background, receiving every word I say, every sensation you feel, and every thought you have. Listening, as it were, to that silence. That's the experience of being. So you see, getting into that silence, paying attention to that silence, which is a wrong way to say it, because you don't pay attention to the silence. When you pay attention to something as an object, silence is not an object. Silence is the nature of attention. In other words, silence is consciousness, is awareness itself. So when you bring the attention back to its source, you reside in that silence. That is the contact with intelligent infinity. That is the highest meditation that exists. There is nothing else. You can say taking drugs, doing some pranayama, breathing, or whatever it is, any physical and mental activity to get into states of mind, they are nothing compared to the pure silence that all mystics have been talking about. And it's always been there. That's why we say, you have always been perfect. So that is the great way, as I see it. That is that contact with intelligent infinity and intelligent energy. The longer you become associated, not with the mental activity, but with the source of the mental activity, which is the silence, the more contact with intelligent energy you will have, and more radiation of this spirit that we all are is going to come into play. There is magic happens here. This is what I am interested in showing people. This is my bias, if you will. I'm only dedicated and devoted to this teaching or showing. I'm pointing to a place which I cannot explain, but you can experience. And as I point to it, I notice in my own experience and in the others that have changed their lives through this process that the magic happens without us being able to conceptualize it. But trust me, it happens. And it's only in the trusting of the self in its own source, in its own nature. Because prior to this, we have been paying attention to that which is away from us perceptually. That hasn't worked. So it's a good indicative to come back and try this, to test this. And this spiritual pain that develops, like I have been saying, it's only because we don't know what to do with all the information. Indeed, there is not much activity. In fact, there is no activity that will bring stillness in anything, matter, mind, what have you. No activity will bring about stillness. Only the ceasing of that activity will reveal the stillness in which that activity plays out.